This is Habakkuk 2:6. Shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, Woe to him that increaseth that which is not his? How long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay.
All right, let's talk about the Fed, shall we? Well, it's happening again. President Trump is going scorched earth on the Federal Reserve, and specifically on Jerome Powell, calling him always too late and wrong, and saying his termination can't come fast enough. And honestly, can you blame him? The Fed has been dragging its feet while the European Central Bank has already cut rates 7 times. Meanwhile, Americans drowning in credit card debt and mortgage rates are still through the roof, and they're going up again. And Jerome Powell is just like sitting there pretending that everything's fine. Now, Trump is making it clear Powell's days are numbered. The Federal Reserve isn't some neutral institution. Of course, it's a cartel of unelected bankers manipulating our economy and destroying the value of our dollar. Want to know why we got into the Great Depression in the 1930s? Look no further than the Federal Reserve, the cause of it, the impetus for it. And Powell has been their poster boy for years. So let's dig into this with someone who actually gets what's going on here.
So, it's a system that's designed to fail. Ultimately, in order to usher in that MOTB, the Revelation 13, 16, and 17. All right. This whole thing with Trump basically blaming this guy, Powell, Jerome Powell, to me, it's just a stunt, Trump, of course, he's trying to play the savior, because we're already in a recession. We've been in a recession, and it goes to show you how wicked Esau is. He creates these laws out of thin air. Just all these, laws he creates. He rewrites laws, creates new laws, because if I'm not mistaken, and this is something they did a couple of years ago, maybe 22, maybe 2023, they basically changed the definition of what a recession is. And if I'm not mistaken, I do believe the definition of a recession is, matter of fact, I could just look it up here real quick. And before I get on with this video, I want to give all praises. While I'm looking this up, I want to give all praises to Yahweh Ba'Shem El Shai. Double honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone. And, shalom to you, hopefully elect. I'm your brother, Yahweh Call, from Great Millstone, Orlando. Again, all praises to Yahweh Ba'Shem El Shai. So, just looking up real quick what defines a recession. I do believe it's 2 negative quarters of spread and prolonged downturn. Just bear with me real quick. Because that might be the spirit. Because like I said, if I'm not mistaken, what classifies a recession is, I do believe it's 2 back-to-back, 2, maybe 3 negative quarters. That's what defines a recession, which, as this was going on back in, I do believe it was 2022, maybe 2023, or maybe even 2024. As this was going on, they changed the definition of what a recession is. So, again, just, one of many examples of how Esau, he changes laws. All right. He creates these laws out of thin air. All right. And then he rewrites those laws. Right. Let me try this. Yeah, so two consecutive negative GDP, or gross domestic product, is what indicates a recession. All right. But they changed the rules. They changed those laws while we were in the midst of a recession. Because again, we're already in a recession. And like I was saying, Trump is trying to, of course, play the savior. He's trying to blame this guy Jerome Powell, because we're heading into another depression, if we're not pretty much in one already. All right, because the whole Fed, it's a fraudulent system. It's designed to fail. All right. Because this whole system it's a debt-based system. And you can only inflate this balloon so much before it pops, and that's what's getting ready to happen. All right, this balloon is getting ready to pop. And like I said, overall, somehow, some way, they're going to use this to usher in that MOTB. All right, but I want to play some more of this video.
He's been demanding the end of the Fed. Joining us now is Chris Rossini from the Ron Paul Institute to talk all about this. And by the way, check out his incredible work here called Set Money Free, What Every American Needs to Know About the Federal Reserve. And Ron Paul, of course, wrote the foreword there, and Chris joins us now. Chris, great to see you. I know you and I are on the same page with ending the Fed, but maybe just at a high level, we can get into the pieces of why the Fed is awful for the United States of America. But what's happening here with Trump and Powell? What do you make of this back and forth?
Yes, well, you're 100% correct. Like you said earlier, it's a criminal organization, perhaps the biggest one in our country besides the military-industrial complex. But the Fed is what fuels the military-industrial complex. It should not exist, the Federal Reserve. Two main reasons. Number one, they price fix interest rates, and nobody knows what the price of interest rates should be. It should be set by the marketplace between a lender of savings and a borrower of those savings that they want to invest. So a centralized Soviet-style board of federal governors picking what the interest rate should be should not exist. So that's number one. And number two is they counterfeit. And, there aren't too many federal crimes in the U.S. Constitution, but counterfeiting is one of them. And the government got around, okay, we're not going to counterfeit. What we're going to do is we're going to have this private bank, so-called private bank, counterfeit money instead. And that's why we have these trillion-dollar budgets. The value of our dollar is, compare it to when I was a kid, when my parents were a kid, and they got cheeseburgers for a quarter. That's because, nothing changed with the cheeseburger. It's the value of the dollar has dropped so far that it now costs, people can't afford McDonald's anymore. So those are the two.
It's all fixed. All right. Like he just said, more so a bag of chips. The bag of chips necessarily hasn't lost its value, but more so it's the purchasing power of that fiat currency that's more and more being devalued. It's a fraudulent system. Psalm 94, verse 20, shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frameth mischief by a law. So you see, this system was designed to, it wasn't designed to be forever. All right. Again, we're already in a recession. We've been in a recession. We're heading towards another depression. All right. And with that being said, as we've seen in history, this is going to usher in a new system, a new way of buying and selling.
Main reasons, why the Fed should not exist.
So President Trump says he's been way too lazy on this move to lower interest rates. Do you think? I think we've heard some rumblings that the Trump administration, or when he was candidate Trump and then President-elect Trump, that there was some discussion that they were going to end the Federal Reserve. Why do you think they haven't ended the Federal Reserve?
I don't know if they can. The Fed is, I would say, more powerful than our government. This is a banking cartel, and it's even bigger than the United States. It's a part of all the central banks around the world. So it's one thing to say, that you're going to end the Fed, and another thing to do it and get everybody to go, or enough people to go along with it. I think the Fed will end itself, and has been Ron Paul's position, because it will create a financial crisis that it will not be able to salvage. So that'll probably bring the end of the Fed, because there will be no other choice, and it won't have to deal with politics. They'll just have to go, kind of like when we stopped all the COVID stuff. That was it. It was time to stop. So that's what I think is more likely. As far as the spat with Trump and Powell, President Trump doesn't know what interest rates should be either. In the same sense that I don't, and Powell doesn't, and Ron Paul doesn't. Again, like I said, it should be set in the marketplace, instead of one person decreeing, or certain people, that this is what the interest rate will be, and that ends up distorting the economy. When it comes to has Powell been doing the wrong things, I actually take the side that he has been right in how he has conducted. Again, this shouldn't exist, but when inflation is roaring, and it has been, we've been suffering for many years, you want interest rates to be up and perhaps even higher to help choke off that inflation. If he lowers interest rates, people are going to look at that and be like, oh, well, let's go get more loans. And the Fed will print money, and we're going to have even worse inflation.
And it's going to be more devaluing or more diluting. So how I'm looking at it, Trump is either really dumb, he doesn't know what he's doing for real, or he's being told to do what he's doing. And of course, I'm under the impression that, he's being told, because again, it's a controlled demolition. It's all orchestrated, for the most part. Everything is artificial.
This is a bad cycle that we're in, but more inflation is not what I want. I'm paying enough at the supermarket. The last thing we need is interest rates to go down, artificially again, and that'll just fuel further price rises in the future.
Right. I think people forget, people have short-term memory loss, I think, because these artificially low interest rates are in large part what got us in this mess in the first place.
Yes.
And now I think you're hitting this housing crisis again. We're facing a housing crash again. I think we're on the precipice of a disaster. Is that how you read it? Are we literally sitting on the edge of an economic disaster? Have we already hit it?
The market is far too complex, and there's so many variables that I can't sit here and be, we're finished. People adapt to everything. But we are in terrible shape. That's for sure. Interest rates going lower, while it would feel good, take a look at the government. Take a look at the businesses, individuals. Do you think when you look at America, these people need more debt? Because that's what would happen. And that debt would have to be created by the commercial banking system, by the Federal Reserve, again, counterfeiting. So we will just have further inflation down the road. So Powell is doing the right thing. Again, this shouldn't exist, but keeping rates up, I think, is the right thing to do. Now, it hurts, but it hurts. If you drink too much, the solution isn't just get me more drinks so I don't have the hangover. The hangover is going to be worse if you drink more. So it's the same thing. We don't need more credit. What we need in this country is more savings. And that is not going to ever happen if the Fed lowers rates, artificially again.
President Trump he seems to have great reverence for Andrew Jackson, President of the United States during the 1830s, of course, and famously Andrew Jackson at the time, I think it was 1830. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he ended the second bank of the United States. It wasn't the Fed, but it might as well have been. It was a powerful institution led by a lot of private bankers, a lot of private shareholders. He thought it was corrupt. He thought it was destroying democracy, and so he ended it. And then he came back and vetoed it when they tried to recharter themselves a few years later. I guess the Fed is way more powerful than the second bank of the United States in the 1830s, but if Andrew Jackson did it, maybe President Trump could do it.
Yeah, he was heroic at that time, Jackson. And I don't think Americans know that we've had several central banks. There was the first bank, the second bank, which Jackson ended. There was a national banking system during the Civil War. And then the Fed is the one that's stuck. And it has created this massive disaster. The problem is that the scam is global. The second bank was not a global institution. The Fed is a global institution, and it affects the entire world. So ending the Fed, while, like we said, is right, it would cause a lot of chaos in the meantime. So Andrew Jackson closed down something that...
And that's why, on another note, going to war. On another note. But again, this debt bubble, you can only put so much air in it before it eventually pops. All right. And this debt bubble is definitely getting ready to pop. More debt is not going to solve the problem. All right. Again, Habakkuk 2:6, shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his. And you see, this is why more and more, we see a doing away as far as these other nations. They're moving away from the dollar. All right. And they even show you this on the back of the dollar bill, how there's a web, because again, matter of fact, let me go to this. Was that Psalm 40? Psalm 40 and 2. Just bear with me. So Psalm 40 and 2. He brought me up also out of an horrible pit, out of the miry clay. So you see, again, because this system overall is designed, that's what a pit is. It's designed to keep you down. All right. It's designed to keep you on the bottom. All right. And this whole debt system, again, adding more debt is not gonna solve anything. It's only gonna make matters worse. But this is what the top elites want in order to usher in that MOTB. All right. So that's why, you've been hearing about this debt bubble. This debt bubble, if you've been paying attention to the economics, this debt bubble, right? Eventually, you can only put so much air in it before the shit pops. And when this thing pops, boy, oh boy. Like I said, man, Trump is either really stupid, he doesn't know what he's doing, because he's only making things worse, So he's either just that dumb, not so bright, or the elites are, straight up telling him what to do. And like I said, I'm on the side I tend to believe that he's being told what to do. All right. Again, he's being propped up as this savior, trying to shift the blame on this guy, Jerome Powell, or whatever the case may be, and throw him under the bus, so that, when this depression does happen, all right, because again, we are going to experience another depression, all right. They had their scapegoat, aka Jerome Powell. But back in the Habakkuk 2:6, shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his. How long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. So as it's been broken down a million times, going into this thick clay, going into that debt, that abayat, that debt. All right, which this whole system is based off of debt. And man, when you look into things such as fractional reserving, I highly encourage you to, look into that. This is why you're going to have things, and it's already happening here and there. What do they call it? Because if you go to if you put $10,000 in a bank, that doesn't mean you have $10,000 of it in the bank. Typically, if you want to take out large sums of money, you'd have to call in advance, right? Because again, they just because you have $10,000 on screen, you know, that doesn't mean you can just go to the ATM and withdraw $10,000. Because what do? They take a percentage of that and they loan it out. All right. Which the interest that they put on your money that they're loaning out. All right. Which again, this is all money that they create out of thin air. Right. So with the interest that they take, or they put for loaning your money out, you know, they collect, of course, right? And of course, they take that money and, you know, loan it out and, you know, a loan a percentage out. And then, you know, they loan that. It's just that's what I'm saying, man. When this, and because this is why you have, I was making a point, things like, what do they call it? Man, I forgot what it's called, the term for it, but basically, you know, people with their money, you know, people got it with a savings account, right? It's going to get to the point where it's going to get so bad that, and we're already seeing it, you know, people's pensions getting tapped into, you know, people's 401k, right? People's savings getting took. You know, because again, this whole system is just based off the fact that it's based off this fit clay, this ibatya, this debt. And basically, when the chickens come to roost, man, when this thing spills over, oh my goodness, you know, man, it's gonna be ugly. It's going to get ugly, you know, but all these things are necessary for them to usher in the MOTB and, you know, usher in this new system. All right. But Lord, one of this was edifying, giving all praises to Yahweh Shema Shai. Shalom to you, hopefully elect.